Jerry, you were dealing with certain issues in your life. Can you briefly share what was going on?
Well, my husband was becoming very withdrawn, and even to try and coax him to talk about issues, there was no conversation, which got me very frustrated, and then he would be frustrated. I was very defensive. I didn't know why he was shying away from going out to social engagements or finding that he wasn't happy at work, and I didn't know how to unlock the key.
Can you think of a couple of more words that would describe how you're feeling? Just some suggestions. You said defensive, fearful, depressed, maybe frustrated. You also said any other words that would describe how you were feeling?
Confused. It just was a mystery to me why he was becoming withdrawn, which made me come more withdrawn. I couldn't get a conversation to go on.
How did anger fit in?
I'm angry because I think he had issues and he wasn't able to talk about it. And so that made me more depressed and frustrated.
And how did your behavior affect your family, your friends?
I began to withdraw a little bit with social events. I didn't want to be out with him. He would just go to a corner. It wasn't any fun. It was just wearing on me of what is wrong with our marriage. I can't figure it out. I can't talk to my husband. There were other issues as well, maybe health issues, and I could not get anywhere on that at all.
What was the first most challenging lesson that you learned when you started seeing Jerry?
Well, I thought it was odd to start with my family history. I thought that was kind of a joke. But the more we got into it, there's a pattern of characteristics of how I was raised or the personalities of my parents. So I really, about after 3 sessions, realized it's really important to talk about that. And the other challenging thing was to do I statements.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I didn't even know what he was talking about. So every time I would say you, he'd say, no, you have to say that again using an I statement. I really couldn't even say it. He would have to say a phrase for me to get going, so I was understanding I'm speaking my truth, not blaming someone else. And then I still have the note in my cabinet above the phone in the kitchen, and it says, I want, I need, I care, I love. It changed my whole life. But it took months for me to do that naturally. It was just like changing my whole life by doing that.
Can you talk a little bit about what you learned about staying in your power?
Well, I statements make you powerful. You're speaking your truth.
Who's speaking?
I am speaking my truth. See, I still need help. And it just changed everything for me. I became a more positive, direct person in talking with my husband and other people. And I owned up to my truth. You know, my lie, I led a double life as a child. There was the public persona and the persona at home. And very different. And I don't like to be that way. It was difficult.
So did that change?
With I statements and just the history of my family dynamic, it's changed a lot for me for the positive.
So can you talk a little bit more about how that changed your life, how it's affected your family, relationships with your family, friends, work?
When I felt like I could speak my truth, then I didn't yell or scream or argue or get mad because there was no more anger anymore. It was accepting where I was and the way I was raised in a shame-based family, that when I say I want to do this, I'm not putting anyone else on the defense, so then it doesn't come back to me. So it just changed gradually over a sense of time of me being able to take ownership of who I really am. And I really hadn't done that. I really didn't know who I was.
So you coming from a shame-based background, what did it take for you to know and feel that you are?
It took a long time. I'm still working on that too. I know I'm okay, but that wasn't necessarily the message when I was growing up. I was a nice, wonderful daughter, but I was always compared to others, and so was my sister. And that was just so difficult for us to live up to those lofty goals and
Expectations.
expectations, especially when we were out socially. So I don't think my parents knew that they were, in a way, putting my sister and I down, but they were. We never could measure up. It was tough.
So, what could you say to somebody who's dealing with issues that you've dealt with? If they're watching this video, what do you have to say to them?
Well, simply I'd say, Jerry and you have changed my life for the better. I think that every time I come, I learn something new. I have found that I don't have just one issue, I have several issues. So we keep digging down, I keep digging down, finding more issues and connections as to where was I in my childhood and where am I now. I don't think the process is finished yet.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered?
That's a good question.
If someone's thinking about joining Stop It or seeing Jerry personally or couples therapy, or not therapy, but coming in as a couple, what would you tell them? Like, what should they expect? Or
I think it's a little bit of your personal work, plus listening to the questions and help you get from Jerry, and then applying them to your daily life. And for me, and for someone else, they'll begin to see positive changes. It's magical. And I think everybody, well, for me personally, the work still needs to be done.
so, how did things like? Where are you and your husband? Is that okay to ask?
It's a lot better. One of the reasons why it was tough a few years ago, he was shortly after that diagnosed with Parkinson's, and part of that disease is to withdrawal. He's already a quiet and shy person. So it just compounded the issues. So now that that's out in the open, and I'm supporting him in what he's doing to take care of himself, and then me starting to be calm when I talk rather than yelling and screaming, it doesn't scare him away.
I'm hearing also acceptance.
Right.
So you want to talk a little bit more about acceptance?
About the disease and that sort of thing? Or?
About you learning about being a more accepting person, being able to accept what's going on in your life, the challenges that you're dealing with.
Yeah. It's hard for me to accept myself. I really have to dig in and hear Jerry remind me that I've come a long way. That's not easy for me.
And again, is there anything else that you would like to share with us that we haven't covered?
I don't think so.
Yes.
Probably think of something later, but it's still a job, a work, a passion for me to
A work in
move on.
progress.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we really appreciate that, Susan.